Welcome back to Movie Climax. Today, I'm gonna explain a 2018 romance and thriller movie called My Teacher My Obsession, released in the year 2018. At the start of the movie, we see a janitor cleaning the hallway of a school while an earphone is plugged into his ear. He goes into a room to change out of his uniform and hears a noise from a distance. He goes out to check and sees a girl sitting inside a classroom looking afraid. He tells her he'll go get some help and he leaves. As he goes back down the hallway, a girl runs toward him. She stops him with her hand filled with blood and tells him to run. Then we see a car arrives at the school premises and a man named Chris and a girl named Riley are seen inside. Apparently, Chris is the new English teacher and Riley is his daughter. They just moved to the town and Chris says they did in order to get his life back on track as he needed a fresh start. Inside the school, a girl, Kyla, is seen taking pictures of random people when a girl named Trisha and her friends go to meet her and make her take pictures of them. They see Chris and Trisha says she's going to have him wrapped around her fingers in 2 days. Chris takes an English class and Riley, Kyla, and Trisha are all his students. He collects Trisha's phone as she is on social media during class. He then asks everyone to take out their phone and choose a song of the moment. He and Kyla have a little argument about her song of the moment. Throughout the class, Riley doesn't pay attention as she is drawing something in her book. After class, Trisha is seen talking to Chris outside the classroom. Kyla goes into a classroom and meets Riley. They both discuss about art and there, Kyla gets to know that Riley is Chris's daughter. She promises to keep it secret and tells Riley that she might need help in the English class. After school, as Riley and Chris leave, Kyla is seen taking pictures of Chris. Back at home, Riley tells Chris that she made a new friend who happens to be Kyla. Meanwhile, Kyla gets home and meets her mother working out. Her mother says that she met someone and she is going on a date with him. She promises to tell Kyla more details later. That night, Kyla fantasizes about sleeping with Chris. The next day, Kyla meets with Riley in her house where she asks about Riley's mom. Riley says that she was cheating on Chris so they had to leave. Kyla excuses herself and goes into Chris's room and rests her head on his bed. The next day in class, Trisha breaks her pencil just as an excuse to get Chris's own and Chris gives her. Later, Trisha goes to meet Riley and asks if she's waiting for her dad. Riley is surprised as to how she knows but she says she always sees them leave together. Trisha tells Riley to be careful with Kyla, and then collects her number so they can go shopping later. Kyla sees them talking to each other and waits till Trisha leaves before going to confront Riley. She tells Riley that Trisha had something with a former history teacher and he was replaced with a substitute. She says she doesn't want that to happen. While on a phone call with Kyla, Riley mentions that her dad is seeing someone. Just then Chris appears in front of Kyle's door. Apparently, he's seeing Kyla's mom. She opens the door and lets him in. While Chris and her mom catch up, Kyla accidentally pours water on Chris. She then suggests that they don't go out for the date anymore and that she'll assist in cooking and they agree. In the night, Kyla screams from her room, claiming she saw someone outside her window staring at her. But this is all a lie. She's doing all these just to be close to Chris. While her mother makes some tea, Chris tells her that Riley is out with Trisha. The following day, Kyla sees Chris half naked inside her bathroom. Chris then opts to take her to school since he is going in that direction. They go to pick up Riley and on the way, Chris apologizes for earlier. At school, Kyla is pissed at Riley for going out with Trisha. Riley says that Trisha told her it was Kyla who had something with the previous history teacher. Kyla tells her to leave saying she is busy. Later Kyla has a physical altercation with Trisha. That night, Kyla takes pictures of herself half naked. The next day in school, Kyla opens her locker, and pictures of her flood out. It happens to be the one she took the previous day. Kyla goes to report it to Chris who tells her he'll find out who did it. Later, she and Riley reconciled and Kyla says Riley is probably the best friend she's ever had. Chris asks Kyla if she's going home now as he is headed in her direction. She says yes and they leave together. He tells her he'll see her later in the night as he has a date with her mom. That night, while Chris is at Kyla's house using the bathroom, he receives texts from a number claiming to be Trisha. Kyla forces her mother to read it and she ends things with Chris. Kyla goes to meet Chris outside in his car and starts to touch and kiss him. He tries to stop her but fails. She says that this is her piece of statement. She goes back into her room and takes out a bummer phone which apparently she has been using to text Chris as Trisha. She breaks the phone and jumps back on her bed happily. Chris is invigilating an exam when Trisha walks up to him to ask a question. Kyla goes to meet him to return his suit saying he left it in her house. This infuriates Trisha and she goes back to her sit. When the bell rings, Kyla is the last to leave the class and she tries to kiss Chris who apparently wasn't feeling it. While Kyla and Riley are discussing about Trisha, someone tells Riley that he'd see her at the party. Back at Kyla's house, she is seen leaving for Riley's party. Her mother tells her that Trisha was the one that sent out those photos, as a broken phone was seen in her locker that contained the pictures. Kyla arrives at Riley's party, and she gives her a gift. She also gives her some alcohol and then excuses herself to go inside. She goes into Chris's room and starts to touch him. Chris objects at first, but due to her persistence, he finally gives in. While they are at it, Riley walks into Chris's room and catches them in the act. She is disappointed and leaves in tears. He goes after her to apologize, but she leaves anyway. He then tells the other kids to go home. When he gets back into the room, Kyla lies to Chris that Riley has a drinking problem. He tells her that what they are doing is wrong and that he is going to look for Riley. She tells him not to go and that she'll come back later, plus they have the house to themselves. He refuses and leaves anyway. He is seen driving his car about looking for Riley, while Riley is seen sitting at an isolated area crying. She then texts Kyla's mother saying that they need to talk. The following day, Chris sees Riley on the road and tries to talk to her, but she refuses. In class, Chris asks a question, and Kyla answers, but he backlashes at her answer. Riley leaves the class a few seconds before the bell ring. Every student leaves as the bell rings except Kyla, who stays and goes to ask Chris what that was earlier. Just then Kyla's mother arrives with Riley and tells Kyla to get her stuffs. She then gives Chris 2 slaps across the face. She leaves with Kyla and scolds her. Kyla says her mother is only doing this because she is jealous that they are in love. Kyla's mother asks her if all that stuff with Trisha was a lie, and Kyla tells her mother to stay away from her personal life. Later, Riley goes to meet Chris by the pool and asks him why he did this. Chris tells her that he was empty inside, that he let this happen, and that he is sorry. Riley forgives him and they hug it out. Kyla is seen calling Trisha on the phone and telling her that they need to talk. They meet up somewhere outside school and Trisha says that Kyla planted all the evidence on her. Kyla asks her what she's going to do about it. When Trisha doesn't do anything, Kyla starts hitting herself and eventually breaks her finger. Chris and Riley see them from inside the car and rush out to help. After a while, Trisha is seen in a police vehicle and Kyla is told to go to the hospital. At the hospital, Kyla apologizes to her mother about what she told her earlier. She says she wants to see Chris one last time just to say goodbye. Riley goes in and tells her thanks for opening her eye to see that her dad needs help. Kyla then asks her for a favor. She says Riley should help her take pictures of the school volleyball playoffs and Riley agrees. She begs to see Chris for the last time. When Chris enters the room, she says that she convinced her mom and Riley that nothing is going on between them so they can continue in secret. Chris tells her that there is nothing to continue and that he doesn't want to see her again. She tells him that he has to see her in class and he says he's going to resign and clear out his desk tonight. He then leaves. Chris is in the school cleaning out his desk and he sends a voice message to Riley, who is also in the school, telling her that she should meet him in his classroom. Meanwhile, Kyla's mother goes to the hospital to see Kyla, but she doesn't find her there. Riley listens to the voice message and is on her way to the classroom when Kyla appears and stabs her with a surgical knife, saying there's only room for one woman in his life. Kyla then goes to Chris's classroom and starts to kiss him, holding the knife to his neck. When she mentions Riley, Chris angrily pushes her away and asks where she is. Kyla kicks him and he falls headfirst on the table and loses consciousness. The janitor hears this noise and goes to check it out. Kyla then hides Chris and sits like she's scared. She lets out a little scream and the janitor finds her. He then goes back outside to get help and is stopped by Riley, whose hand is now filled with her blood. But it is too late as Kyla slices his neck with the knife. Riley runs into a room and is followed by Kyla, who tries to stab her. Riley is able to knock the knife off her hand and give her a series of punches. The police and medics arrive and Riley is put in an ambulance and Chris follows her in. Kyla is also put in an ambulance, but she is escorted by the police. 1 year later, Riley is seen dressing up for her first day in college and she checks the scar she incurred from being stabbed. She goes to meet her dad, who is also preparing for his first day back in school. She collects the key to the car and he tells her he'll see her at dinner. As she drives off, a person in a black hoodie is seen lurking outside their house. The end. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.